Hello and welcome to Back to the Science. I'm Dr. Susan Oliver and I'm a scientist. And back there is Cindy Oliver. She's in training to be a scientist, but so far, to be honest, she's not showing a lot of interest. As I'm sure you all know, monkeypox is now spreading around the world. I won't say how many countries it's in because it's probably already going to be out of date before this video is even published. Now, as you would expect, there's been a lot of informative videos going over all the things we know about monkeypox. And we do know quite a lot. It's not a new virus. It was first discovered in 1958 in lab monkeys, hence the name monkeypox. And it was first detected in humans in 1970. However, in this video, we won't be looking at what we know. We'll be looking at what we don't know, because that's just as important. Now, there are two reasons why there is a lot we don't know. Firstly, most of what we know is based on a limited number of historical cases because up until recently, most outbreaks have been brought quickly under control. And that means we may not be aware of less common characteristics of the disease. And secondly, we are seeing something unprecedented: substantial human-to-human transmission outside of endemic areas. And because this is new, we can't assume that everything we previously knew about monkeypox is still the case. And we definitely can't say with certainty what the eventual outcome of the current outbreak will be. So let's go back to the science and have a look at the possible reasons why we are now seeing more human-to-human transmission. Now, there are a number of reasons why a virus can become more transmissible. Firstly, the virus itself could mutate or adapt to become intrinsically more transmissible. The next potential reason is the behaviour of the population being infected with the virus could change, and that's either because it's a new population or just that people's behaviour is changing over time. Thirdly, a virus can become more transmissible because the immune status of the population has changed. And finally, it could be more transmissible because it has found a new animal host, meaning there are more potential ways for people to come into contact with it. And of course, it could also be a combination of one or more of these things, or it could be something that I haven't thought of. So let's have a look at what the science says about each of these possibilities. And we'll start with whether or not the virus could have mutated to be more transmissible. Now, you will hear a lot of people claiming that because monkeypox virus is a DNA virus, we don't have to worry about it mutating, but that's not actually the case. We know that DNA viruses are less likely to make mistakes when replicating compared with RNA viruses, but pox viruses are able to mutate in other ways. Pox viruses have very plastic genomes. They can rapidly adapt to new environments and evolve through gene duplication, gene loss, recombination with other pox viruses, and gene gain from the host or bacteria. In fact, one of the best known examples of a virus mutating is Myxomatosis, which is both a DNA virus and a pox virus. Myxomatosis was a virus that was introduced into Australia in 1950 in an attempt to control the rabbit population. The virus mutated in real time to become more transmissible and less virulent. And over the same time, the rabbit population also evolved to become less susceptible to the virus. It's important to note that not all viruses will evolve to become less virulent, as was the case here. If the virus can already transmit before the host becomes really sick, there's no evolutionary pressure for it to become less virulent. And as it happens, there is some evidence that the monkeypox virus has mutated. Sequencing has been done on a number of samples from the latest outbreak, and the results are summarised here. And this information has been posted by the scientists responsible for doing the sequencing. So the first thing they found is definitely good news, and that is that the outbreak most likely has a single origin, which means it's most likely not coming from an animal reservoir. And the other piece of good news is that it belongs to the West African clade. And this is the clade that has a lower mortality rate. Exactly what the case mortality rate is varies depending on the outbreak, with estimates ranging from 1% to 6%. And it's generally accepted that the mortality will be lower with access to good healthcare facilities. However, they have also found that there is considerable mutation from the previous virus, which it seems to be associated with. They are seeing a divergence of about 50 base pairs from the earlier viruses. And this is far more than you would expect considering the estimated substitution rate for orthopox viruses. And monkeypox is an orthopox virus. And some are hypothesizing that this may be an evolutionary jump. The other thing is they're already seeing the first signs of microevolution in the new cases, which means that the virus is continuing to mutate. Now, we don't know at the moment whether any of these mutations would have made a significant difference to how the virus interacts with the human body. They may have no effect, but they could potentially make the virus more transmissible. We don't know this, but we can't rule it out. So this is a possible reason for the increased human-to-human transmission we are now seeing. The next possible cause for the differences in the level of human-to-human transmission is population difference. A lot of previous outbreaks that have occurred in endemic areas happened in small villages where you wouldn't expect people to have a lot of interaction with large numbers of people, and super spreading events would be unlikely. Although there have previously been small outbreaks outside of endemic areas, they have largely been quickly brought under control. So we haven't really seen monkeypox before in a dense and highly mobile population. This also means that some of the things that we have assumed about the virus, like, for instance, the fact that it's not spread by aerosols or that you're only infectious when you're symptomatic, hasn't been completely tested before. It's also important to mention at this stage that the fact that a number of cases have been amongst men who have sex with men is almost definitely a founder effect, meaning the first case was in a homosexual man, and because his social group would also comprise men with similar interests, we can expect more spread in this group. But the virus itself is not more likely to infect them, and it definitely doesn't require sexual activity to spread. The next issue is waning immunity. And this is something that has been covered in a number of peer-reviewed papers, including this recent one, which was published in February of this year. As I'm sure most of you know, the smallpox vaccine provides immunity to monkeypox. And it is believed from studies in Africa that it provides about 85% protection. But of course, smallpox has now been eradicated, and smallpox vaccination stopped worldwide in the early 80s. And in Western countries, it was stopped even sooner, typically in the early 70s. However, even before they stopped offering smallpox vaccinations, the uptake had reduced. I actually received a smallpox vaccination in 1967. But the only reason I received it was because I was coming to Australia. And that's not because there was smallpox in Australia. It was just that it was a requirement if you were coming to Australia to be vaccinated against smallpox. And this is a photo of me on my way to Australia. And if you haven't worked it out, I'm the one in the blue coat. So most people who are vaccinated against smallpox and are therefore protected somewhat against monkeypox are probably over 50 in Western countries and over 40 in endemic areas. Of course, if you are one of these lucky people, this paper here suggests that you still have antibodies that will be effective against monkeypox. They looked at 246 people and they found that in 97% of the participants, there was no decrease in the antibody titers up to 88 years after vaccination. Now, back to the review paper, what they show is that as the proportion of people who have received a smallpox vaccination has decreased, the number of monkeypox cases has increased. And as you can see in this figure, Prior to 1990, the overall case numbers were low in both Central African clade and the West African clade. But after that, you can see that they start to increase quite significantly. And remember, vaccination ceased in Africa in the early 80s. But not only that, the average age of those being infected with smallpox and the average ages of those dying with smallpox has also increased. This rather confusing chart shows the median age and range of confirmed, probable and/or possible monkeypox cases in Africa per decade. Now, the most important parts to look at are the horizontal grey bars, and this shows a median age of cases per decade. And as you can see, it's increased from 4 in 1970 to 79 to 21 in 2010 to 2019. And if we look at those cases where death occurred, 100% of deaths were in children less than 10 years of age in the early years, while for the years 2000 to 2019, those aged less than 10 years accounted for only 37.5% of deaths. So as the age of those unvaccinated increased, so too did the age of those sadly dying of monkeypox. And of course, the more people susceptible to monkeypox in endemic countries, the more people who are able to travel with it to other countries or spread it to people visiting from other countries. The final reason why monkeypox could be spreading more easily is because there could now be more animal reservoirs. But as I previously discussed, this is unlikely at the moment because the evidence suggests all the cases are linked to a common source. However, this is something that could happen in the future if we don't get the current outbreaks under control. It is believed that the natural hosts for monkeypox are not monkeys, but rodents, and rodents are, of course, present around the world. So, in summary, because there are a number of potential reasons that we are currently seeing an unprecedented outbreak of monkeypox, we can't say with confidence what the outcome of the current outbreak will be until we have more information. Although there is some reason for optimism because a vaccine is already available if it's proven to be necessary. If you'd like to look further into the studies that I presented, I provided links in the video's description. And please remember this video is about the science, but you shouldn't take it as medical advice. For that, you should speak to your medical practitioner. Thank you for listening. If you found this video useful, please hit the like button so that more people will see it. And if you'd like to see more videos about the science in the future, please hit the subscribe button.